James. Thank you so much for joining me today on my Twitch talk show, Just Talking.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. It's really nice to be here with you.
It's truly my pleasure. For everyone that's watching, thank you for coming. Today's a very extra special episode for me. Normally on the show, I interview friends, people that I've met through work or through family and friends. And today I'm interviewing two of my heroes, two filmmakers that I cold reached out to on Instagram because I was so inspired by their film, Chasing the Present. Um, if you haven't seen it yet, I can't recommend you watch it enough. I rewatched it over the weekend to prepare for today, and I just took so much more away from it that I didn't even realize the first time I watched it. And I think it's the kind of film that every time you watch it, you're going to be taking away new insights that can literally change your life. So, I'm excited to dig in. Are you guys ready to to talk about the film?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Thanks so much
absolutely.
for the
And
kind
thanks for having us on.
introduction.
It's
Yeah.
great to be here.
Amazing. Maybe we should start with introductions. Um, James and Anna, could you give us a brief introduction to who you are and what role you played in the filmmaking process?
James, do you want to go?
No, you go first.
Okay, sure. Well, I'm Anna Kolber. I'm a producer. I've been working in film for 16 years, and yeah, I produced this feature doc, Chasing the Present.
Awesome.
That's it.
Yeah, my name is James. I'm the kind of the lead character in the film, and I also was one of the main producers on the film, and we worked on it for a really long time, and it was just kind of our idea that we really wanted to get to the root cause of a lot of mental health issues that we were all going through and facing in our lives. And we thought that just really by doing our best to try to understand what was happening to us and share it, that maybe through that, honest exploration and sharing, that other people might be inspired to start looking at ways to grow and to change their own lives. So that's what I've been working on for the last several years.
Well, you succeeded. It definitely did just that. Um, I'd love to know a little bit more about how this film came to be. It's an extremely personal film about uh, James's life and experiences that I think a lot of people can relate to. But I'd love to know kind of like which came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, at what point in your journey did you decide, I want to share my experience on film? Were you already working with the filmmakers before, or how did this all come to be?
Well, at the beginning, it's always hard this question because it's like where do you start, right? Like,
Yeah.
but anyway, I think for this particular project, I had already been like I kind of started transforming my life maybe 10 or 12 years ago. And so I was already kind of doing some things, working on myself. I moved to Bali and I opened up a lot of restaurants and hotels and different kinds of businesses and it was doing okay, pretty good. And then I was having like a lot of anxiety all the time and a lot of panic attacks still. And I didn't really understand how because, in the US, we're told like if you make a lot of money and you have this and you have that, then you should be happy and you should be fine.
Hmm.
But that didn't really make sense. It wasn't true in my life, so I didn't get it. But anyway, I finished a few projects that I was working on, and my friend Mark, who's the director of the film, he was kind of having some time to work on something, and I had some time, and I messaged him and I said, "Hey man, do you want to do a film together?" And he said, "Yeah, I would love to do a film. What do you want to do it about?" I said, "I have no idea. I just know that we're supposed to make a film. I don't know what it's supposed to be about yet." And he said, "Okay, I feel it too. I'm in." So we met and we started brainstorming what should we do and how should we do it and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of came to be that we knew that we wanted to make a film that could potentially help other people. And we went on that track, but about 1 or 2 months in, it was like, wait a second, we're struggling so much in our own lives. Why don't we just try to help ourselves and understand what's going on with us and just share that with the hopes that it could help other people. So we went on for several months, and we went to India and Nepal and did yoga trainings and meditation trainings and did a lot of things and got a lot of footage. And then we met Anna, and we just had all this footage and all this stuff, and it wasn't really a film. And it was like Anna, luckily through a mutual friend, he connected us, and she had some space in her schedule, and we linked, and then she helped us, bring in all these amazing people in the film and help it add structure and basically help turn it into a proper film. So that's in a nutshell, kind of how it came about.
Wow. It sounds very much like fate, that you all were able to come together to produce this. Anna, what was it like for you, meeting James and Mark and becoming part of this film?
Yeah, well, it was like fate. And I had been on a similar journey about, many years, about 7 years ago. I just woke up in my life and I was really unhappy. I was miserable. I was stressed. I was anxious. I hated myself. I didn't like living in the world. And I was just full of despair. And I had to reach like an emotional rock bottom. And I had to also go search really like how to become happy. And I did that by going to therapy and going to group therapy. And I started doing yoga because it made me feel better. And then I started really going deeper into yoga and the psychological aspect of it. And I went to India and I stayed in ashrams for 3 months. And then I've been continuing that journey ever since, whether I'm doing different courses or working on self-improvement and self-inquiry, um, really looking for ways to feel better and end my suffering. And so when I met, just by pure chance, James and Mark, like they were making my dream film. They were making the film I had also been on the exact same journey, and I wanted to share those tools and everything I'd learned with other people because it just changed my whole life. And I'm much happier. I'm much grateful. I'm much less stressed. I'm much less anxious. And I am just forever grateful to the tools that I learned. And, if we can just help anybody in any way, then, we've done our job, and we are so happy. And it was all very like synchronistic, the timing of how they came to New York at the exact same time that I was available. So it was like meant to be.
Wow. Wow. It really is synchronistic. I have to add a little personal antidote here. Um, I also spent time in India and Indonesia when I was after I finished my freshman year of college. I had this need to go to India. I didn't know why. I had not cognizantly started my spiritual journey at this point. But I knew I needed to go to India. I needed to get as close to Tibet as possible. So I found a study abroad program that literally drove from Shimla to Ladakh over 4 weeks, straight across the Himalayas. And I mean, that was a life changing experience. It was incredible. And then I ended up majoring in anthropology. And one of the most studied areas in anthropology is Bali, specifically Ubud and Taraja. And as my graduation gift, when I finished college, my mom took me. So I spent time in Ubud and I went to Taraja and I went to a funeral ceremony. We toured all the homes, looked at all of the graves, in the mountains and in the hillsides. And it's just they're both such incredible places, but I think it's really interesting that we all were brought there or called there, at different times.
Yeah, for sure. I've been living in Bali almost 10 years now, and it's a
Wow.
super cool place. I live in Ubud. How long ago were you there?
I was there in 2014.
Cool. So I was there
That's
also.
awesome.
I can't wait to go
Yeah.
back. It's incredible. Yeah, I probably went to
Well,
one
they
of the
just opened the
restaurants.
borders again.
They did. Oh
Maybe
my
at that
gosh.
point I had a couple, but the main one that I have is called Alchemy, and it was there. I think we opened in 2011.
I'm sure
But
I've
yeah,
been there. Wow. Small worlds, but it all makes sense, similar interests. You know, Something that really stuck out to me that you said in the film when I watched it over the weekend again was that this these life choices and this lifestyle attract strong-willed people. Um, and I think that is so true and just a really interesting uh, observation because it's hard, you know? It's the road less traveled. It's not easy, but it's extremely rewarding. Um, but I want to get into my next question. Uh, this is such an incredibly moving film because it's so vulnerable. Um, what you were able to share with the audience about your experience, you know, emotionally and physically is just so moving. And I'd love to sort of dig into if you had any fears about telling this story. You know, what were you most nervous about going into production and then working with Anna to turn this into what it is today? Like, did you have any fears about this process?
For sure, lots of things came up throughout the, process. I mean, I did like as you saw, um, I did a like a full-blown therapy session on camera. Actually, I did two, and one of them didn't make the film, and that one
Oh,
was also very deep and very intimate. And I also had a really deep, intense conversation with my brother that we filmed, and we actually dropped the hard drive after the filming, so we lost all the footage
oh,
from this like 2 hour crazy conversation that I had with my brother, which
wow.
was crazy. But so there were lots of moments where it was like, wow. But having Anna and Mark and the rest of the crew around, we became really close friends, and so doing what I needed to do in front of them wasn't so hard because we knew each other so well. So it wasn't that tricky on camera, really, actually, for me to do that. But the thing that I had the most fear around really was my dad, because I have a good relationship with my father still, and, as good as it can be, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
us. But I didn't want to make him look like an ass. So it was like this fine line of like, okay, I want to show that there's this thing there that I think it's important for people to see, but I don't want to make my dad look like a complete jerk either, because he's my dad and I love him and he's, and stuff like that. So I think we were on that line. He didn't get mad about it at all. So we were like right on that line, and I think we did a good job with it. But I think that's the thing I actually had the most fear around, actually, was like showing the film to my parents and like, oh my God, what are they going to think when they see this?
Yeah, I I really get that. I think when I first
Yeah.
messaged you on Instagram, that was what I said. Like the conversation that you had with your father and how you used that as this through line without the film. It was so relatable. I mean, I think anyone that has a spiritual awakening and takes their life and happiness into their own hands has to have some really hard conversations. Um, and a lot of people, you know, some people in older generations get it, and a lot of people don't. And it's really hard to
Yeah,
talk about
for
and
sure.
not be perceived as, you know, you've lost it or something. You know, it's hard to,
Yeah,
it's
this
not
is my weird
tangible.
hippie son,
Yeah.
James. Yeah, or my weird hippie daughter, Anna, or whatever. But it's like I think it's a really important part of the film because of films about spiritual journeys, where people go out on journeys and they're just talking about how amazing their life is. And, they're in India and they're just meditating all day and they're not working and they're not stressing about like stuff that most people have to stress about. And it's important, I think, to come back to kind of regular life in a way so that you can integrate these experiences and to show that other side of the coin and not only show like the beauty and the amazingness and all the lessons that we learned, but bringing that home and integrating it into the film, we thought was a really, really, really important part of the journey.
Yeah. I totally agree. Anna, what were some of the fears that you had about producing this film and sharing it with the world?
Um, I'm trying to
Anna's
think.
fearless.
Fears.
She might not have had many
I was
fears.
just really. Well, that's not true. I mean, I had lower stakes in the film in that I didn't put myself on camera. Like, I get nervous doing these interviews. So, I mean, James, you just putting yourself out there and sharing all this really, really personal information, and even showing your pain is just such a vulnerable thing to do. Um,
Yeah.
so, I mean, it's really
Thank you.
brave, and I think a lot of people resonate with that. And that's what people love about it, because you're so honest. There's no point in doing it if you're going to like hide, um, which we do a lot. But in terms of fears, like all the things that I've learned, like I used to be really anxious and stressed about everything. Like I wanted to be, like I thought that I could control everything. Like I, even throughout this film, even for when I started working with James and Mark, I was like way more stressed, but they're so nice. And, you know, just being like, oh, this didn't work out. Oh, it's my fault. And I did this. And, you know, I just have a tendency to think I can control everything. And it's just not true. Like I can only do my part, and the rest is out of my hands. It's in the hands of the universe. Like I can't control how many people see this film. I can't control what people think of the film. I can't control how it gets out there. All I want, you know, I just want the best for the film, and I want to help as many people as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well
So
said. Very well said. And it is so, it's such a brave film. It's probably the bravest film I've ever seen. Um, and I don't know if it's just me or if everyone who experiences something like this feels like this, but I've been thinking so much about how I can tell my story. Um, and you know, as a filmmaker and as a creative, I obviously think about the medium of film a lot. And I mean, you set the bar really high, James. Like I don't I don't know how you top this. Um, and this is
Thank you.
this is a little off track, but I have to ask. Are you on TikTok at all, and are you aware of spiritual TikTok? Does this ring a bell?
No, I haven't. I have this love-hate relationship with social media. I'm not a big fan, but I feel like I have to be a part of it, you know, so it's that kind of a vibe. So when TikTok started, I didn't have the energy really to like explore another social media platform. So
To,
I'm not involved in it at all, no.
okay. I completely
But
get
what's
that and
spiritual
agree.
TikTok? Is that
Yeah.
another new thing or what's that?
Well, so I got to tell you about it. It's really interesting. Um, I'm sure as you have also noticed, you know, during the pandemic, so many of us have had these big breakthroughs, whether it be, you know, spiritual, sobriety, um, you know, living in the present, mindfulness. It goes on and on. And there has been a lot of people coming onto TikTok and sharing their experiences. And so there's a whole TikTok kind of has little communities that are created through hashtags. So if you search a certain hashtag, you can find all these same types of videos. And there's a community called Spirit Talk. And it's basically all of these people who have had some sort of spiritual awakening that are sharing their experiences in short videos. Um, and a lot of people have found themselves there. It's not something you necessarily look for, you kind of just end up there because the algorithm's scary good and it takes you to places that it thinks you'll be interested. But it's just fascinating to me because the dialogue around this topic has increased so much amongst young people.
That's great. It needs to. It needs to. It's such a crazy time we live in. This is such an important topic. I've noticed it a lot too. But like you said, I don't know if it's like really happening more in the world or if it's just about the algorithms of Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and whatever. So on my Instagram, that's just what I'm seeing. I don't
Yeah,
know if that's the reality of the whole world because, you know, it's definitely growing for sure. But you can tap into anything you want, you know, like
right.
online and it will show you whatever you want it to see. But it's really cool and it's such an important dialogue, especially now, you know, with the pandemic, you know, alcohol abuse rates are up,
Yep.
domestic violence is up, suicide is up, all these things are up because everybody's locked in on this lockdown, you know, as they're calling it.
Mhm.
So it's a really, really, really challenging time for most of the world, I think, right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
well, and I think like it is like a mental health epidemic, and it always has been, and we just didn't speak about it. And if you think of like however 20 years ago when we all got into working out and everybody learned that you have to take care of your body and you need to go to the gym. Well, now I think we're all learning that we take care of our minds.
Hmm.
And just like when you go to the gym 3 or 4, you know, like if you want to stay in shape and you want to stay healthy, everyone knows you go to the gym 3 or 4 times. You don't just go once, and you look at what you eat and what you put into your body. And we're now in this era where people are learning they need to take care of their mental health, and you need to go to the gym for your mind the same way you
Yes.
go for your body, and you need to do different things. And I do think that conversation is becoming more widespread because people don't feel good. At the end of the day, everybody just wants to feel good. And if you don't feel good, you're going to look for something that will help.
Yes. I I completely agree. Um, it's a scary feedback loop, but something I've noticed is that you can't force this upon anyone. You know, it's kind of the same as the choice to get sober. You know, it's not going to work if someone forces you to do it. It only really sticks when you choose to do it for yourself. And the same goes for, you know, doing yoga, practicing mindfulness, meditating. And it's not easy for a lot of people. I feel lucky that I didn't struggle too long to make that decision, but I know it's not like that for a lot of people. So, you know,
For sure,
it's
for sure.
it's an ongoing
Yeah.
conversation. We can get back
I
into
mean, I
questions
think,
though.
like I went to, well, I was going to say, I went to like my first yoga class because I thought it was an exercise to go work out. And I wasn't expecting that after that class, how I was less anxious and how
Hmm.
I felt better. So that's kind of what just started this whole journey. And it was just about doing things that make you feel better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I collect immaterial things that make me feel better. I'm still working on it every day. Right now, my addiction is sugar. I really need to stop eating cookies.
I know, but it's so good. I love cookies too.
I know, I know. Oh man, at least it's just cookies. Could be worse. All right, but back to the movie.
Exactly.
Um, I would love to know what was the hardest part of filming Chasing the Present? You know, I'd love to hear from both of your perspectives. James, I'm sure there were a lot of hard parts. The ayahuasca journey looked terrifying but amazing. And doing therapy sessions on camera, I can only imagine. But I'd love to hear from you. Like, what would you certify as the hardest part?
For me, the hard, like technically speaking, the hardest thing to film was the ayahuasca section
Hmm.
because we went to a place called the Temple of the Way of Light in Peru, and there were 12 people on the retreat with us. So some of those people had cancer, and some of them were struggling with various different things. So it's, you can't film everybody, and it's quite hard to have a camera around there. They didn't really want us filming much, and also when you do ayahuasca, you do it in that tradition. You do it in the complete pitch black dark. There's candles at the beginning, and then after everybody drinks their ayahuasca, they turn the candles off and it's nighttime. So you can't, we couldn't like bring in lights and film, and we had to respect the tradition. We had to respect all of the people around, which we wanted to do. But it became, we were there for a month, and we still didn't get to film like anything close to actually what we wanted to film.
Hmm.
But at the same time, we're super grateful for what we were able to film, and we think that we put together a nice little piece out of it. But it was that was the hardest part for sure.
Wow, that's really interesting. I didn't know that there are no lights during the ceremony. Sounds very
Where
intense.
we were, I mean, in some places they do it in the daytime, and other places are less strict. But we did it with the Shipibo people, and they have a very specific way that the ceremony goes. And like I said, we were also there with other people, so we didn't couldn't change the ceremony structure for, to make a film. We wanted it to be as real and as authentic as possible. So
Well, it definitely came across that way. It was awesome.
yeah,
Uh,
I'm glad
Anna,
it did. Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Anna, what was the hardest part for you?
So it's an interesting question because this was for me like just the most enjoyable, easiest film that I've done, and I don't say that because it wasn't like we worked. I worked really hard, and we worked. All of us worked really hard. It was usually the hardest part with filming is managing all the people you work with and different personalities and like having a lot of people and we all became so close and became such good friends, and Mark and James were so nice and so grateful and so thankful, and so easygoing. If things didn't work out, it was very like, well, then it's, that's not what's meant to happen. So yeah, it was so much fun. But then I guess the hardest part was, you work really hard to, your attention is all on like making the film and you want to make the film. And then you're like, oh, now we have to distribute the film. And that's always, it's just part of it, but it is definitely, that was a lot of work and a lot of time. And that's also really difficult.
Yeah,
And I would say maybe less fun than when you get to travel around and interview people and talk to people.
definitely. I feel like it would be an incredible experience to be on a film crew with people who are all aligned and working with the universe. You guys might have had the only film crew
Oh,
to ever be like that.
But it was
it's
still
like
hard.
night
Anna
and
had a tough
day of
time.
like there's a stark difference.
Sorry, I think there's a tiny bit of a delay, but it was tough. I would say from an outsider's perspective, the hardest part of like the whole project was just working with all the different people and communicating with all the different people that were in the film and trying to get people in the film and talking to their agents and talking to their managers and talking to them and people not responding and then people responding saying, okay, we can film in 5 days in New York, just dealing with that kind of stuff was was definitely stressful sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, you have quite the cast in this film. I loved everyone that you interviewed. They were all incredible. I don't want to pick favorites, but I wrote down some of my highlighted characters. I loved Suri Prembaba. Incredible. Like just seeing your conversations and relationship with him blossom was amazing. I loved Gary Weber. I want to talk about Gary
Hmm.
Weber. Can you tell me a little more about that interview and that experience?
Anna, do you want to talk about Gary a bit or? No, I'm just playing. But no, it was cool. At that point, I didn't know him at all or who he was. We all were researching, and obviously, a lot of the people who we talked to, we had heard of or read their books or watched their videos or listened to their podcasts or whatever. But with Gary, Anna, Mike, and Mark kind of found him and went through his book and said like, "Wow, this guy's amazing. We really want to talk to him." And we think James and Gary would have an awesome conversation. So I didn't get to know anything about him. Like I couldn't Google him or watch his videos or read his book or anything. So I didn't even know what he
Interesting.
looked like. And until the day we got to the place and I just sat down and then comes inside as Gary Weber. And then we sit down and we just had a 3 hour conversation together at the table. And it was a lot of really new information for me that I hadn't heard before or thought of really. So that was a really powerful conversation. I think for that reason that they did prevent me from learning anything about what he teaches. So that was really cool, really powerful.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like that methodology of kind of going in blind to the experience. Um, yeah, everything
Yeah.
he said was kind of earth shattering in the best way possible. Of all the interviews, was there anyone whose ideology you related to the most or that, today you still think about most often?
Well, I think for sure the stuff that Gary Weber said is the stuff that I agree with the most in my own ideology, and
Yeah.
also Prem Baba. I've spent a lot of time with Prem Baba and going to India and Brazil to be with him, and I definitely agree, 100% with the message that he teaches, and I think about this stuff all the time, every day. So yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I think probably out of everybody and what they teach and what they stand for, I think it's would also be those two people. I mean, of course, it's amazing to talk to Russell Brand and
Yeah.
Joseph Goldstein is also incredible. He's a really, really
Yes.
beautiful, amazing teacher, and I was just really lucky to have the opportunity to speak to all those amazing people, and it's interesting to see like who will get back to you, who doesn't get back to you, who has time in their schedule, who doesn't, who resonated with our project and who didn't. So
Hmm.
we basically put in the film the people that, resonated the most with the project, got back to us that we felt were a good fit to tell certain parts of the story. And
Yeah.
we also filmed with Muji. I went and did a silent retreat with Muji, and we got to spend 2, 3 days filming with him and hanging out at his ashram and everything. And it was towards the end of the film, so it actually didn't make sense to put. He would have needed to be a main character in the film, like for his message to fully be, unraveled and make sense.
Hmm.
And we didn't. We were already almost done, so we didn't get to use that footage. But that was also a really, really beautiful experience.
Wow. I bet. I'm a huge Joseph Goldstein and Sharon Salzberg. I'm a stan. I love them. Sharon is actually how I found out about chasing the present. Because my therapist years ago recommended 10% Happier, the meditation app. I
Hmm.
quickly found Sharon and Joseph, um, and started reading everything I could get my hands on. And I actually emailed Sharon to see if she would come on the show, because I want to talk to her about meditation and millennials. So that is going to happen, which is really exciting. This is just the beginning. This is the
Great.
Oh, that's great.
yeah, yeah, I'm so excited. But it's very
Awesome.
validating to hear that Gary Weber also stood out to you.
Yeah, definitely. And there was only a little bit, maybe there was 10 minutes of that conversation in the film, but we talked for 3 hours.
That's so
So it
cool.
was a really, yeah, it was great.
What was it like to be in his presence? Like what did his energy and aura feel like if you can remember? I know that's kind of a strange question, but
No, he felt kind of like that's the interesting part. He felt like like a normal kind of like grandfather vibe, like a soft,
okay.
caring, normal old man kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I could say around Prem Baba, you can definitely feel something, it was something different. There was like this joy, this bliss, this natural like thing of just being around him. You just wanted to laugh and you just felt like happy. And it was like a really strong, powerful thing with Prem Baba, I think for sure.
Oh, I bet. Wow. Wow, wow. Um, this is that's so incredible. I can't imagine. Was it hard to so this took place over years. How long were you doing these interviews and
Mhm.
traveling for?
The whole project was like 4 years, but I think the interview yeah, it was about 4 years. So I'd say about 2 years of traveling and filming and shooting stuff.
Wow. So how did you transition away from being around these incredible spiritual teachers and going to all these spiritual places?
Yeah, it's actually I love doing that, and I think Anna loves doing it also. And we were just about, and it was going to continue. We were on a really good momentum. We were just about to launched the film, and we had a whole tour of several hundred theaters like that we were going to book around the world and travel around and do talks and meet all
Oh.
these people and do all this kind of stuff. And then literally like 2 weeks after we hired the team to do the tour and all these things, COVID hit. And then all movie theaters in the world got closed. And then it was just like bam. So I basically we went from traveling around making this film for years, doing all this amazing stuff, like straight into lockdown. Like
Oh my
I
gosh.
literally, the day before, the day before, the WHO said it was a pandemic. I was with Ed Sheeran filming an interview that I did with him in London, and then they said it's a pandemic, and I was like, oh my God, okay, so I don't know what this means, but we went back to Bali and just like started this, that was a year ago, or actually exactly a year ago when I was in England filming. So it's been a pretty interesting transition, I guess, from traveling, making an awesome film, talking to these people, sharing, doing lots of conversations and chats to being like in a lockdown for a year. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's been interesting. Let's see what happens.
Damn. Well, luckily, it's only going to become more and more relevant, and I think more and more people are going to benefit from seeing this film and want to see it. So I hope that you're able to do that when this is all said and done. But you bring up Ed Sheeran, and I would love to talk a little bit about the celebrity relationship to mindfulness. And I was journaling the other day and I wrote down this idea. Do you mind if I share it? I'd love to hear what you think.
No, go ahead for sure.
This is an open
No, no,
discussion.
yeah.
Um,
We'd
okay.
love to hear you share.
So, a lot of people that I've talked to in the spiritual community have made comments like, oh, like Kanye West gets it. Like, he knows. Like nods to celebrities being like, they understand the universe, they understand spirituality. They've been into this stuff for years. As though, non celebrities don't necessarily figure this stuff out at the same rate. And so I was hypothesizing that maybe an underlying reason why many celebrities are also interested in these topics is because a lot of people blame their unhappiness on being unsuccessful, not rich, not famous. So they think that that's why they're unhappy. But famous people, celebrities in particular, they have the riches, they have the fame, but when they get there, they probably realize that their life fundamentally has not changed. They're still the same person, and whatever was making them unhappy before is probably still making them unhappy. So the only way to solve that, if you want to solve that, is to go within. And that is what leads you on this journey. That's just my theory. I'm just curious what you think of that and kind of what your experience has been, talking to celebrities about this topic.
Well, I would say, I don't know if you know that quote that Jim Carrey said. He said, I wish everyone could be rich and famous so that they'd know that's not the answer.
Mhm.
And,
I love Jim
that's
Carrey.
exactly what you're saying. And yeah, he's amazing. And I don't think you have to be rich and famous to learn that because, I kept getting things, I kept achieving, I kept getting things, and I kept getting more and more unhappy. And I couldn't figure out why either because it made no sense that, like, technically my life looked like, I was living in LA and my life looked amazing. And I was like, I know I'm supposed to be really excited about it. And that, other people are jealous, like I'm from Sweden, I'm in LA, and I wasn't. And I don't think you have to have everything um, to learn that. Because finally, when going on this journey, like I kept getting things, and I just realized this insanity of it was always like someone just pointed out. I was like, well, if I get that, or if I achieve that, or if I get that job, then I'll be happy. And I didn't realize that I was putting a then I'll be happy
Mhm.
onto everything. I was tacking that onto everything I was doing, and I just didn't know I was doing that.
Right.
And then I finally just stopped doing that. Now things happen, and of course I get happy about things, but I'm also less detached because I'm happy in spite of what is happening because it's
Interesting.
not there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. James, how's it been for you?
Um, I think there's a couple points to what you brought up, like people saying Kanye West has it all figured out and blah blah blah. I mean, I think just a lot of people just watch celebrities and watch the famous Instagram and TikTok and Twitch or wherever. They have a big following. They have a lot of people who watch them. So Of course, they're going to have lots of opinions about them, more opinions than regular people. But when you go to India, there's nobody there really that's a celebrity. There's like a few famous gurus or whatever, but some of the most peaceful people in the world are like homeless Indian people, or, Babas that are on the streets just by the river in complete bliss and peace and happiness. Not all of them are. There are some of them that are still really suffering, but some of them are.
Hmm.
So it's for sure not about being famous, obviously. I think it's just that everything that Anna just said, and we all are brought up to try to achieve happiness through the material world. We're all brought up being told that if we get this, if we get that, if I have this car, if I have this girl, if I have this job, if I have this money, if I have this whatever, then we'll be happy. As opposed to going inside, like we've said here, like you've said, and searching for it and connecting with it, that because it's already inside of us, it's already there,
Yeah.
and just connecting with that space and let it come from the inside out instead of trying to have it come from the outside in. And I think that's a huge distinction, of that inside out, outside in. And it's super important. And we're just looking for guidance. And I don't know, it's kind of cheesy, but I heard this not too long ago and I thought, like, wow, before internet and all these times and maps, even, we used to look for guidance in the stars.
Hmm.
And now, unfortunately, with the internet and technology and all this stuff, we still do look for guidance in the stars, but it's not the same stars. It's different. So everybody's like looking for answers from famous people online as
Yeah.
opposed to looking from them in nature and in ourselves like we always have done. And I think we just need to get more connected to that space again. And the more we connect with that space in ourselves and in nature, the better off we're going to be, the better off the planet's going to be, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. I totally agree. Um, Speaking of the stars, I know this is not covered in the film, but do you have any opinions on astrology and how it is becoming very prominent again, especially on social media and for young people?
Um,
I,
I don't,
I,
I think
I,
it's
I
cool.
don't know enough about astrology. Sorry. Go.
I think no, no. There's a delay. There's a delay. I think there's a lot of knowledge in it for sure. I don't know so much about it. I only know about my own, which is an Aries thing to say, I guess.
I'm an Aries
But in
too.
general, when's your birthday?
April 2nd. What about you?
That's my birthday.
No. Is it
Yes,
really?
my birthday's also April 2nd. Yes, for real. That's my birthday. I'm
Wow.
older.
That's so
I'm
awesome.
1984, but
Oh,
yeah,
that's
we have the same
hilarious.
birthday.
I mean, I
Yeah.
get it.
So,
It's a great day to be born. I wouldn't want to be
yeah.
born on any other day. I love being an April 2nd Aries.
Yeah, it's good. I was close too because I was born at like four. I don't know if it was 4 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon, but it was like four something. But no, I think there's a lot of validity in astrology for sure. And I don't know much about it, but I know that every time I read something about me, my birthday, or one of these charts or whatever, I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's pretty accurate. It's always kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some wisdom in there for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't live by it. Like, I think it's dangerous also to just like wake up every day and read the astrology chart and like, I'm not going to go to the grocery store today because like this might happen. For me, I'm definitely not like that. It's more of like a interesting thing. I'm not going to like every move I make be guided by like what this one astrologer tells me is the truth.
Yeah.
I just don't live my life that way.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. I think it's nice to know what's going on uh in the universe and just have a general idea of how that can influence or not influence our lives. Um I think it's interesting that it's becoming a cultural phenomena, but I know that it tends to do so when things are uncomfortable. So makes
Mm.
sense. Um, all right, chat. Thank you all for being here. Sorry I haven't acknowledged you yet, but if you have any questions for Anna or James, please type them in the chat. Now's a great time to ask any questions. Want to go back into the film a little bit. I know our memories kind of get altered when we're able to relive things that we've done by watching the movie, for example. Um, but I was wondering if there's one memory that is the most vivid for you, of, something that you experienced either on camera, off camera. Is there one or two memories that stand out to you the most?
Mm, I think definitely the Gary Weber conversation, definitely the whole trip to Peru and going and doing ayahuasca for sure. That was some of the craziest memories of my life were definitely there. So I think those are two key moments that really stood out. Definitely.
Yeah, they stood out to me too. um, well, are those are my main questions. There are a lot of general themes that I wanted to touch on. Um, Something that I've really been focusing on is learning how to fill the void, without substances, um, without sugar, social media, all the distractions. Um, and I think that it comes across as a big topic within this film. So I'd love to hear about both of your experiences and, how the film has helped you, how you're doing now, how are you feeling?
You want to go first, Anna?
Yeah, well, I feel great. I feel much better. I mean, I had a lot of things that I was doing to avoid myself or to numb myself. And I mean, the first step is even realizing that you're doing that.
Yeah.
And also, things have become a habit. Like, I really was stressed all the time. Like, I loved being stressed. I mean, I don't. It makes me uncomfortable, but that was still the state that I chose to be in. And when you're stressed all the time, you're just numb. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have feelings. And like, I do that to myself, like by being late, or just coming around when I was living in New York, coming to the subway station and then just missing the subway, you just see it pull off and you get really angry and upset and then you're stressed, but the next subway is coming in 3 minutes. So like, what is the point of this overreaction?
Yeah.
And I don't know, just like you have to first notice the things you're doing. And even now, just the negative self-talk, like, you know, we do a lot of things to avoid our thoughts, but we wouldn't have to avoid our thoughts if our thoughts were nice or if our thoughts were pleasant. And I, at least now after 7 years, I have noticed in the last few years, like I can catch myself when yelling at myself or, you know, just whatever. If you are late, like you don't have to make it worse by then just screaming at yourself in your head and then being upset about it. Like I just catch my negative thoughts now and I try to change them or just try to remind myself I'm doing the best that I can. And but it was really cool when I went from like being governed by my emotions and thoughts and thinking that my feelings were facts and that they were real to noticing that like my brain is lying to me and just catching them and like reminding myself of the truth. And the truth is always like, positive and full of love. And I do all of that. A lot of that came through meditation, and a lot of that came through courses and journaling and writing, and a lot of things that I do, like changing your habits to positive ones. If you're eating sugar all the time, I don't know, like you're eating sugar all the time, maybe, start walking instead or doing yoga. Like I just have a lot of things that I do now um, that aren't harmful and self-destructive.
That's
So I try to
amazing.
get into doing those instead.
That's really good advice. I'm going to follow it with my sugar problem. What about you, James?
Um, I also I eat a lot of chocolate. I love chocolate. So I maybe have a sugar problem too. I don't think it's a problem, but I guess I haven't made it to the first
But
step
it's
yet
so
of
good.
realizing that it is a problem. So maybe I'm not there yet. But I feel definitely much better. Making the film completely changed my life. And the way that I was before, I mean, I was having panic attacks every month at least, and I couldn't drive a car. And now I can drive a car, and I haven't had a panic attack in 3 years. So I think,
Congrats.
the whole process of what we learned making the film and putting these practices into life are really have been life changing. And I guess maybe the last thing that I'll say is you said something really interesting about you were filling this void before with um, all the bad things or whatever, and now you're looking for good things to fill the void with. But I think it might be interesting to like, because I used to think like that too, and then I thought like, wait a second, um, can this void be filled? What is this void? Is it a void? And from my own experience in meditation and just everything that we've learned and just yeah, just my experience, it's not actually, it is a void in a sense, but it's more like space. It's more like infinity, So there's actually no way to fill it at all. And that's why people spend their whole lives just buying things to try to fill that space, and it just won't work because you can't fill it. It's unfillable. So
Hmm.
for me, instead of this idea of trying to fill the void, I just tried to reframe that and just think of it as like, this is what I am. That's actually the core of my being. So instead of trying to fill it, how do I connect with it? How do I just spend more time connecting with that space and realizing that that is actually what I am? That's
Yeah.
actually the part of God that's inside of me, or consciousness, or awareness, or however you want to think about it. But that's what that space is, and it doesn't need to be filled.
Yeah. I think of it as my higher self. Are you familiar with
Hmm.
that concept of higher self?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. I try to keep an open dialogue with her. Um, and it definitely helps. It's it's a fun part
Awesome.
of the journey. Um,
Yeah,
well,
for sure.
this has been so enlightening and awesome. I'm so grateful to you both for taking the time to do this. I have one final question, uh, which is, what advice would you give to someone who is struggling right now? Is unhappy and looking for some relief, but maybe feels like they can't meditate or they're having a hard time, um, you know, figuring out a way to help themselves. What's some advice that you would give to them?
I would say for me,
I
the
think the
most
hardest
important
thing
things.
in the world is
Sorry, the delay.
you go,
Don't.
James. We're on delays. Okay, my go. Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm just saying
Okay.
the hardest thing in the world is to be in that place of hopelessness, and especially like being in the cycle of waking up every morning and promising you'll change and promising you'll do better, and then nothing changed. You don't do anything different, and then you're just back to being hopeless. And I just say to anyone who feels that way that it really is in your power, and like to go on a journey to find happiness. And it doesn't have to be that you're meditating, it can be anything. I know people have cured depression by going to the gym every day. Like, that's not what I did, that wasn't my story. But the you need to find things that you personally like I love taking walks in the hills of LA. That makes me really happy. I'm never going to be the person that like goes jogging or goes to the gym. So just try finding the things that make you happy and then sticking to them, because forcing yourself to do things that other people like that you don't like is really difficult and is a fast, it'll just make you fail. And that there is hope, that there's always hope that you can change and feel better.
Yeah, thank you. That's great advice.
Yeah, I think it's super relevant and important, everything Anna said. And I think some of the same things, but I think the three main things that I learned through making the film, and it's said in the film from the different people, ways to change and ways to heal ourselves, spend time in silence. spend some time away from the internet, away from all this stuff, and just be silent, whether it's meditating or not, or whether it's while you're walking or doing something, but just some real true silence away from everything so you can hear yourself. You can hear yourself and hear what your body's trying to tell you and what your mind's trying to tell you. And I think the second thing that I've found that was really important and interesting that everyone that we talked to around the world said was spending time in nature and how amazing that is. Going on walks, going in the park, going for a hike, going in the ocean, going to the beach, just going in nature and being a part of nature. Sometimes we get locked up in our houses and our computers and we're just in this space all the time, kind of really disconnected with ourselves because we're connecting with something else. And if we get into natural places, we kind of our body clock and our natural rhythm starts to be there, and it becomes much easier to be quiet and for our mind to be still. So I think those two things. And the third thing that really helped me a lot was, I had a therapist. So 12 years ago or something, I started therapy. And I know everybody can't afford a therapist, so I'm not saying that you have to get a therapist, but there's probably somebody in your life that you like and that you trust and that you talk to. And I think it's really important to have that connection with another person where you can share and express things that you're going through and talk about what's going on for you. For me, it was one of the biggest ways to bring lightness into the dark that I was experiencing was sharing it and telling people what I was going through. So, yeah, I think those are three super important things that have helped me tremendously on my personal journey.
Thank you for sharing. It all really resonates, and I am motivated to get some silence in today. I think that sounds really good. It speaks to me for sure.
Awesome.
Well,
Well,
thank you,
thank you so much for having us.
thank you. It
Yeah.
has been such a pleasure.
Happy early
Yeah,
birthday.
thank you,
Yes, you
Amanda.
too.
So nice.
This was so much fun. Thank you for creating this incredible film. So many people are going to benefit from this, and I will continue to tell everyone I know to watch it.
Awesome. Thank you
We
so much.
appreciate it. That's awesome.
Of course. Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.